Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated economist here. So thought I'd talk a little bit about this Reuters article. And this Reuters article is actually reporting on the FreightWaves article that we were reporting on last week. So I said it, FreightWaves was a great online publication to be following because they are talking about the trucking industry, and the things that are taking place in the trucking industry was actually confirming some of the things that I was saying about the retail industry about a month ago. I said that maybe even a little bit more than that, a few weeks ago, a month ago, whatever. I had put out a video talking about how retail is dying. Now, I work retail sales at a lumberyard hardware store, and I felt a dramatic slowdown taking place, not only in the walk-in customers, but the amount of phone calls that I'm getting and what those phone calls are asking for. Up until a couple of, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, like the amount of retail sales that we were doing was much higher than it is now. And you think about it, that was like the winter time. We're going into summer. This is the time that you would be getting a lot of people asking for quotes on decks and fences, and they're getting ready to do remodels or home improvement projects. But I'm not finding it. Not like I had in the past. Not during this time of season. Well, you have to think about this. What's going on? I mean, we just come out of this pandemic. Everybody was locked down at home. If there was a past project or a future project that these people wanted to do, they did it. Like, it's already done. You don't need to build another fence. You don't need to build more decks. You don't need to do the raised garden beds anymore. All that stuff is done. The colors of the walls are what they're going to be, and there really is not a whole lot of home improvement available out there considering what has taken place over the last couple of years. What are people doing? They're going out to the restaurants. They're going out to concerts. They're going out and having a good time. They're looking for things to do that's away from the house. And if it's away from the house, well, then you don't need home improvement items any longer. So it wasn't a surprise to me to see that we were slowing down here at the retail side of things. Now, the contractor service side of things is doing quite well. Like, there's still quite a few houses being built, and there's still quite a bit of a demand for the lumber and the building supplies when it comes to that part of the industry. But the walk-in customer the count is very low. So when I start reading these articles about like how the FreightWaves, or the FreightWaves article talking about how like trucking is slowing down and how the rejection of orders, like, it's kind of weird how they do this. Like, I'm still trying to figure out how it is like a lot of this trucking industry works, but apparently there's like a list of orders out there that can be, like for truckers to find, and the rejection of those orders, like the trucker saying, no, I'm going to pick and choose which one of those I want to do, and some of those just don't seem profitable enough, so I'm not, or aren't the ripest fruit, I guess I should say, or the easy hanging fruit, so they reject the other ones. Well, those rejections are dropping dramatically. Like, there's less and less rejections of those particular orders out there for transportation. So it leads me to believe that there is a much more demand for these truckers to go out there and find that work, right? And I'm also getting more logistics calls. So a lot of times you will get, like, especially working for a lumberyard and you do deliveries, we will get like companies that do logistics. Like, they are looking for freight to haul, and they are looking for us to like hire them for their trucking capabilities. I have to explain to them we're just a small retail lumberyard. We have our own fleet of material, or fleet of trucks that we deliver our material with. We don't really use outside sources for that. So I have to explain that to them when they call. But those logistics companies, like, I haven't heard from them in quite a while. Like, they just stopped calling. But now I'm starting to get their calls more. In fact, I've gotten a couple of them over the last couple of weeks. And I asked some of the other sales staff if they have experienced that too, and they said yes, they are experiencing that as well, where they answer the phone and it's one of these logistics companies looking to haul material for us. So it looks like a lot of these truckers are now trying to find work again, which seems very odd considering what has been taking place over the last couple of years. So you can see right there, that's a sign of the times. Things are shifting. Now, one of the other things that I had noticed is that there was a huge demand for warehouses. They have been building warehouses across this nation. In fact, there was articles that we were reporting on about how neighborhoods are trying to figure out how to stop these people from building these warehouses, because it's kind of messing up their whole neighborhood. Like, all of a sudden they went from a nice neighborhood to this industrial neighborhood because of all these dang warehouses that are everywhere. Well, I have to think about, like, what's going on here. You had a huge demand for stuff. People were locked down and they wanted TVs, right? Think about TVs, furniture, all the stuff, like all the stuff that you would enjoy having when you're locked down at home. Like, you've been locked down, you don't want to sit there with all your old stuff, you want all new stuff. So everybody went out there and started buying TVs, right? And TVs and furniture and whatever. Well, if you sell TVs and everybody runs out there and buys a TV, and all of a sudden you don't have a TV, and you got this line out the door of people looking for TVs, and you go to order a TV or order your replacement, and they're like, hey, there's not a lot of TVs to send to you. How many do you need? And you're like, I need 10 TVs. And they're like, well, you're only going to get 4. Or they're like, I need 20 TVs. Right? Order me 20 TVs, because you know you're going to sell them. There's a line out the door, and they're allocating against you. So you're ordering even more of them than what you would typically ask for. Well, next thing you know, here come the TVs. Here comes the furniture. Here comes all this stuff that everybody had over-ordered because there was this huge demand for this stuff. Well, those orders show up as demand. Consumer demand. Like, there is this huge demand taking place for all this stuff because people were being allocated. They expanded that demand. The demand was false. It doesn't truly exist. Well, all this demand for all this stuff created these orders which actually did start to show up. Now this stuff is coming into the country and there's really no place to put it. So what do? You build a lot of warehouses. And now we're finding that there's warehouses being built all across the country to store all this stuff because there's this huge consumer demand that doesn't really exist. So now here all the warehouses are being built, and like I said, in previous videos, there's like neighborhoods that are trying to block people from building these damn warehouses. So now these warehouses are starting to fill up, and it's supposed to go to the retail, and now the retail isn't there. Like, they're like, oh, we're done with TVs, we're done with all that stuff. We're taking off to go to the restaurants, we're going to the concerts, we're like out of here, but we're not hanging out at home, and we're not changing the colors of the walls, and we don't need no TV, and we don't need new furniture, and we don't need any of this stuff anymore. And this is what's starting to happen, and you can see it inside of the freighting companies, because now they are starting to find themselves in a position in which that there is less need for them. Even though there was a huge demand for them a couple of years ago, which increased the amount of trucks and freight and everything that's going to be available to haul this stuff, doesn't really need to be there. This is what we're starting to experience. It's all part of the bullwhip effect. You're going to find in a couple of years, when all this stuff finally starts to flow through the system again, and we go back into a more just-in-time delivery, and I know a lot of people are going to argue that, but what's going to happen is that all this stuff is going to get stored in the warehouses so that they don't have this just-in-time delivery, and that's going to add costs to the products. But then the freighting is going to start easing up, and the distribution lines are going to start becoming more efficient, and the people who have stuff in the warehouse are going to be charging more than those who can have it in just-in-time delivery. And so the just-in-time delivery is going to become the more popular way to go about it. And that's going to become the norm again. It's going to take a while for it to get there, but that's what's going to happen. And then all these warehouses that are full of all this stuff, once that stuff is gone, those warehouses won't be needed anymore. And we're going to have a bunch of empty warehouses that will not be worth anything to anybody. Right? Unless they plan on keeping the supply chain broken, which is very well possible. I mean, you can see it kind of taking place with China right now. So, all right, I'm going to leave it at that. Uneducated economist, you guys let me know.